Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. This week has kind of been a really interesting week for me. I've gotten a lot of feedback about the show from people who've seen it on YouTube, people who have watched it live and watched it in the repeat. So to all those people, I wanted to say thank you very much. I have a lot to do tonight, and I'd like to immediately go to the album. Tonight's show is going to be a show about the arches of Italy. And this is a show that, I was rummaging through all of my photos, and I do that very frequently to get ideas. Sometimes I just, go through the pictures and say, well, here's a theme that kind of ties everything together, and I'd like to take a look at that. So I try to look at that, and I was doing that about 6 months ago, and I came up with a bunch of ideas, kind of, esoteric things, like the arches of Italy and the piazzas of Rome and the gardens of Italy, which I'm doing in a couple of weeks. And I came across this one, the arches of Italy, which, there's arches all over the country. And I thought that I would start with a little background on the importance of arches and the history of arches, and then get into some of my favorite arches that I've seen all over the country. So that's what tonight's show is going to be. But first, we're going to take a quick look at Venice. Laura and I are going to the Venice Biennale in a couple of weeks, and she will be exhibiting at the Palazzo Bembo, as I've indicated before. But today something very interesting happened. I had applied to the Venice Biennale Press Relations Office for credentials, my own personal credentials, so that I would have the ability, if I were in, when I'm in Venice, to go around to the different exhibitions and see the different pieces of art and walk up to an artist or some other official of the Biennale and actually ask them for an interview. But without credentials, you really can't just walk up to people and do that. So I applied, and I found out today that I had been granted press credentials, which is really, really great. Now, not only will I have the ability to go around. This is the logo for the Venice Biennale, and that's the main building right, below. And the name of the total exhibition is Il Palazzo Enciclopedico. I think I pronounced that correctly. It's the Encyclopedic Palace, and that's the air conditioning just clicked on. So I think we should get rid of that. To get these credentials, I told them that I'm producing a cable access television show weekly in Woodstock. And then I received a letter from Jeremy Wilbur, the town supervisor, endorsing my candidacy for press credentials. I did the same with the people at the Woodstock Artists Association, Josephine Bloodgood and Carl Van Brunt, who are the directors of WHAM. And through their help, I was able to obtain these credentials. So what I will be bringing back with me will be a lot of material on the Venice Biennale, which, of course, I will share with my viewing audience. And I will also, I also indicated to the Woodstock Artists Association that I will be doing a lecture, which will, show all of the things that Laura and I have seen. The curator of the Venice Biennale is a fellow by the name of Massimiliano Gioni, and he chose the title of the Encyclopedic Palace because of somebody that he came across, a fellow by the name of Marino Oriti, and Massimiliano indicates, that on November 16th, 1955, Marino filed a design with the U.S. Patent Office depicting the Encyclopedic Palace, an imaginary museum that was meant to house all the worldly knowledge, bringing together the greatest discoveries of the human race from the wheel to the satellite. And Massimiliano goes on to say that today, as we grapple with a flood of information, such as attempts to structure knowledge into the all-inclusive system seem to more than necessary and even more desperate, explained Gioni. The 55th International Exhibition of Art will explore these flights of imagination in a show that, like Auridi's Encyclopedic Palace, will combine the works of contemporary art with the historical artifacts and found objects, a reflection on the ways in which images have been used to organize knowledge and shape our experience in the world. And the Biennale will be an inquiry into the realms of the imaginary and the functions of imagination. And that's what the Venice Biennale is going to attempt to bring to its hundreds of thousands of visitors, and it's going to be very, very interesting. So, of course, I will bring back as much information as possible. Now, if you remember, last week I was talking about the piazzas of Rome, and in that regard, I identified what you're seeing now on the screen, at least I hope you're seeing this on the screen, as the Palazzo Pamphili. And as I was saying that, you know how sometimes you say something and you wish you could take it back as you're speaking it? That happened to me, and I said, I am definitely giving my audience the wrong information. When I got home, I immediately researched it, and of course was correct. That was not the Palazzo Pamphili. That was the Church of Saint Agnese in Agone, in the Piazza Navona. So my apologies. So this building, which of course is a church, it didn't look like a palazzo, it looked like a church, and I'm sorry about that. This is the actual Palazzo Pamphili, which is also in the Piazza Navona. So, and they're right opposite, I think they're right opposite each other, or certainly in close proximity, but this is the famous Palazzo Pamphili in the Piazza Navona, which is now a really wonderful art museum. So, once again, and people are always saying to me, don't bother to correct your mistakes because people aren't really focusing that closely. But, I personally felt that I'd made a mistake and wanted to correct it. So there it is. That's Saint Agnese, and that's the Palazzo Pamphili. Okay, now this is the next thing I wanted to discuss. Over the past several weeks, I've been compiling a list of Hudson Valley artists who will be showing in Italy their art. And I compiled a list of these various situations. There are 4 of them. Starting on May 11th, at a group called Procida America, who will be appearing in La Chiesa di Santa Margherita in Procida, Italy. And Italy is, this part of Italy is right near Naples. And the name of the exhibition is A Sense of Place, an intercultural collaboration of artists. And it's part of a global attempt to gather together great artists all over the world, mostly in Italy and in the Hudson Valley. The name of the group is the Artists Worldwide Exchange, and they had an exhibition in Verona, and the people from Verona came to the United States, and I think they appeared at the Kingston Art Ask. So what does that acronym stand for? The Art AS. I can't now. The Art Symposium of Kingston, or the Art, whatever it is. This is the Art Museum of Kingston, and so this group is appearing in Procida, Italy, and you see a list of the artists, these are a lot of people that Laura and I have made friends with over the years, but so they will be appearing starting on May 11th. Then on May 17th, extending through June 29th, is a local artist by the name of Yale Epstein, and he will be showing at the Andrea Ingenito Contemporary Art Museum in Naples, also in Naples, Italy. Naples is a very happening place, obviously. Incidentally, ASK, I just figured it out with the second part of my brain, the Artist Society of Kingston. So that's what that stands for. So Yale will be at that museum, and he will be showing new works from his calligraphy series. He will be there on May 17th. And then, of course, on June 1st, Laura Gerton will be appearing at the Palazzo Bembo, which is an official collateral event of the 55th Venice Biennale in Venice, Italy. And, as part of the exhibition known as Personal Structures, Time, Space, and Existence. So that will be a 6-month exhibition. And finally, on September 20th, extending through October 11th, another friend of ours, Art Murphy, who's a wonderful artist, will be showing in the Florence Natural History Museum, the Geology and Paleontology Division of Florence, and his show will be known as the Art Murphy Solo Show. And I've been, speaking with Art about his upcoming trip. So, to all of these artists, congratulations, and we're very privileged to have all of these artists, local artists in the Hudson Valley, who will be appearing in Italy in various venues. So this is really wonderful, and I congratulate all of them. So here we are, back to Alan's Italy, show number 63, The Arches of Italy, and you're looking at one of them now, which we'll come back to in a little while. But first, I want to talk about the popularity of arches, all over. And my first segment here will be known as Arches Can Be Found Everywhere. And I begin, and again, let me enlarge this because I took this picture off the internet. This is a picture of the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. And it is one of the evocative sights of Paris. I've seen this. I've been to Paris 4 times, and I've seen this arch, and it's really impressive. And it was dedicated to the French, to the people who fought in the French Revolution and in the Napoleonic Wars. And, it stands on a beautiful plaza. I was going to say a piazza, but in French, it's called a place. Piazza is in Italy, and a place, la Place de la Concorde, and so on. So that's the Arc de Triomphe. And this is another arch which appears in Grand Army Plaza, which is at the confluence of Flatbush Avenue and Eastern Parkway and a bunch of others, and Prospect Park West, that combine into this really wonderful square. In the United States, of course, it's called a square, or a village green, of course, as I spoke about last week. And this is a monument that used to stand on what was called Prospect Park Plaza. But in 1926, the name was changed to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the Foundation for the Grand Army of the Republic. And, 1926 minus 60 years brings us to 1866, which is right at the end of the American Civil War. And the Grand Army of the Republic was indeed the unofficial name of the army that fought for the North against the South. So that's what that is dedicated to. This is the arch that appears in Washington Square in Manhattan, right in the center of the village near New York University, NYU. And this was established in the year 1892. And those of you who have been to Washington Square, and there are many of you, of course, this is what you see there. This is an interesting arch, and this is the St. Louis Arch that was built in 1965. And that's, whenever you see pictures of St. Louis nowadays, this is what you see as a representative of the city of St. Louis. This is called the Rainbow Arch Bridge in Fort Morgan, Colorado. And I thought that this was a very beautiful bridge. Look at that. It's like one arch after another. And, it's a beauty. And, Colorado is a hotbed for beautiful arches. And this is the natural arch in Colorado. And there's a couple of people on the right side there. It looks like a father and son, or father and daughter. It's hard to tell, really, but they're looking at this amazing natural arch right in the middle of Colorado, and you can see the beautiful country that is. And then, of course, we have the arch that we're all very familiar with, the McDonald's arch, the golden arches of the McDonald's sign. So that's like a very evocative and well-known arch in the United States. And then we have the zoo in Stresa, Italy, located on Lake Maggiore. And when we went to visit the zoo, we were struck, as I indicated when we were doing Lake Maggiore, not so much the animals in the zoo, but the layout of the gardens, which was really magnificent. And this is an example of that. These are the arches that they indicated in that location. And then, of course, and this is also in Stresa, in a different part of that same zoological park. So this is another arch. And then this is the arch that you see right under that loggia in the Villa Monastero in Varenna on Lake Como, which is right near where our hotel is on Lake Como that we stay in. And that's a beautiful arch as well. And of course, the arch that provides us with entrance and exit to the Galleria in Milan, Italy, on the main piazza. So those are some of the arches that I found throughout Italy and throughout the world. And now I thought what I would do is talk a little bit about some of the history of arches. And arches go back through history, and certainly the Romans did the most with them. And I broke that down into the structural arches in buildings and the essential part of Roman aqueducts, and also triumphal arches, which are all over the country. And I came across this, and I can't possibly, I'm not an architect, and I can't really talk eruditely about what an arch is architecturally and in terms of engineering. But these are some of the arches that I found on the internet, and you could see that there are quite a few of them. Decorative arches that are used in a variety of different places, some of which we will see on tonight's show and some of which we will not. But I thought this was a really nice chart which kind of summarizes all the various arches that are in existence. This, of course, is the arch of a cave. And, before people were able to, that's a little too large because I think I lost the essence of that. Let me make that smaller. Okay, this is, when people found dwellings to live in, they just basically came upon a cave, and that was the place where they decided to live. And this is one of them. I believe this is in France, but I'm not totally sure. But, of course, there is a natural arch of the entrance to this cave. And that's certainly the beginning of arches. And there's another view of a cave with its natural arch. And of course, we have Stonehenge. And this is, much beyond that point. And they use a system of an arch known as post and lintel. The post being the vertical part of that, and the block of stone that connects the two. So that's the post and lintel, and that was the original construction architecturally of an entrance to a building. And once that was created, it opened up all kinds of possibilities. The ancient Greeks did not use arches, as far as I could see. I've looked very carefully, and this is one of the evocative buildings in Paestum, which is the Greek ruins just south of Naples, Italy. And but it was really the Etruscans who began it. Even before the Romans, it was the Etruscans. And here we are back at one of my favorite hill towns in all of Italy, Civita di Bannareggio, to show you the original Etruscan arch. And this is very, very well known throughout Italy. Excuse me. People who want to see Etruscan art usually come to Tuscany or Umbria, where there is a lot of Etruscan architectural remains, and this is one of them. This is the arch at the entrance. There it is. There's a different view of another one. This is, I think these are two separate ones. This is further inside the building, and this is the actual arch in which the arch is the original Etruscan arch, but the building itself was built around it, so they preserved the Etruscan arch. And of course, the Romans really developed the concept of arches architecturally, and there is an idealized view of what the Roman Forum must have looked like 2,000 years ago. And I just love this picture because it's a when you see the Roman Forum now, what you basically see is a city in, a city in ruins. But if you look at this, you really get to see what the Romans saw 2,000 years ago. They even give you a few people to show you the relative size of the monuments in relation to the people. And you could see the arch right there in the front on the right side of the screen. And that is the famous arch of Septimius Severus that we'll take a look at a little later. But you could also see that there are arches throughout this scene. The building straight ahead is the Tabularium, which was the ancient Roman record where they kept records. And that you could see arches are being used. And then there's a building over there on the left side, which I think is the Basilica Julia, which also has arches. And there are arches all over Italy. Now, why was an arch? This is the first kind of a triumphal arch. This is it's called a triumphal arch, and this was created as kind of like a ceremonial apparatus for a conquering hero to come in and get what is called a triumph. And the triumph was an institution of the Romans to honor a conquering hero coming home to celebrate his victories. And it was usually an emperor, and he was in a chariot, just as you see there. That's what it looked like. The emperor was in a chariot, and his whole procession came through the arch, and the procession was filled with people following him and his soldiers and some of the spoils of war that he brought back. And this is what a triumph looked like in ancient Rome, with the people cheering him and welcoming him home. This is, of course, what the Roman Forum now looks like, looking at it slightly from the south, east, and there you see in the distance on the left side the Arch of Septimius Severus. And that's another view of it from a slightly different angle. And the building you see with the giant arch over there on the right side is actually the Basilica of Constantine, which we'll take a closer look at in a few minutes. There it is right there. This is the Basilica of Constantine, which uses the Roman concept of the arch. Now, from what I could gain from doing a little research on why and how arches were created, the arch gave greater architectural flexibility in terms of being able to support more structures. And this is an example of that in one of the most monumental buildings of the Roman Forum. And it's called the Basilica of Constantine and Maxentius, who I believe were brothers. One began the project and the other finished it a little later on. Now, of course, this is the Colosseum, which uses arches in a decorative way with different columns. As you go, bottom to top, the columns get more and more elaborate, starting with Doric to Ionic to Corinthian. And this is another view of the use of arches in the inside of the Colosseum in Rome. That's a close-up of some of the entrances and exits that are even now used in, you go to a stadium now to see a baseball or a football game, and they use the same concept of entrance and exit. This is another view of how the arches are used inside the Colosseum. This is the arena in Verona, Italy, and you could see that there are now concerts that take place in the Verona arena. And if you look closely, you'll see that the group, The Who, will be playing there, and we got there actually a day before they were playing, so we missed that. But you could see the use of arches all around that. There's a close-up, and there's a close-up of the poster indicating that The Who will be playing there. And this is what it looks like inside. And this is actually a basilica in Pompeii, which uses arches, and very interestingly, uses different size arches in the same building. That's another view of it. And this is an arch there are ancient Roman ruins in the wonderful town of Gubbio, which is located in northern Umbria. And we kind of skirted over that when we were talking about Umbria earlier in the year. There's a picture of Laura standing right in the middle of that arch, an ancient Roman arch. 1 second after this picture was taken, Laura lost her glasses, and we went back to this spot and found them exactly where she was standing. And for anybody who wears glasses, you know that one of the worst things you could do is lose your glasses, but especially so in a foreign country. And this is a view of the Forum in Pompeii, and you could see the use of arches in their Forum at the very end there, the arch on the left and on the right. This is a closer up view of that same picture with the two arches. And of course, there's Mount Vesuvius looming menacingly over there in the background. And of course, this is an aerial view of the city of Pompeii in ruins. And if you look closely, you could see arches all over the city. And this is a great picture of the excavation site in Pompeii. And there's another view of the ruins in Pompeii with the arches over there as well. And yet another picture in Pompeii. Actually, this is the same thing we had seen back here. If we go back here, this idealized view, this reconstruction of what the Pompeii Forum looked like, this is what it looks like now, the exact same view. So you can see that the two arches are still in existence, thank goodness. And these are arches that are used in the Pantheon in Rome. And we've been here many, many times on this show, as I keep coming back to my favorite monument in all of Rome, the Pantheon. And there's another closer up view of that, how it's used within the architecture of that building, a slightly different angle. And of course, arches were used in aqueducts. And this is one of the aqueducts that Frank Pelayo, so, again, I have to thank Frank for giving me this image, and that's the image you're now looking at, the use in aqueducts. And there's another view of it in an aqueduct in Rome. And there's an incredible view of a multi-tiered aqueduct. And I'm not sure this is in Italy. I think this could be somewhere further up north in Europe, if I remember correctly. But that's amazing. And now the triumphal arch, and this is the Arch of Septimius Severus that I'd mentioned earlier. And this is a really close-up view of it as it now stands in the Roman Forum. And there's a slightly more distant view, so it gives you a better view of what that arch looks like. And it's a triple arch, so you can see that there's three parts to it. Is there a better one? Actually, this is the same arch, but from a different angle. But this is, you could sort of see two of the parts, two of the arches, and the third one is located just behind that bush over there on the left side. Oh, there's actually a bed, but still, you could just a peek of that left side arch over there. And this is another arch in the Roman Forum, known as the Arch of Titus. Titus Septimius Severus was a Roman emperor, as was Titus, and they were all built to honor their conquests all over Europe. There's a picture of me standing in the Piazza Colosio with the Arch of Constantine behind me. And this is a perfectly preserved arch dedicated to the Roman Emperor Constantine. As you could see, it is also a three-part arch. Whoa, that's a really tiny picture. I can make that a little bigger. I was looking for arches all over Rome, and I found a few, and I'll go through them just briefly. This is the Arch of Augustus in the town of Aosta, which is a town in northern Italy. This is the arch also of Augustus, located in the Italian town of Rimini. And you can see that that's a very interesting one, with the arch and then the capital, I think it's called a pediment, the triangular shape right above it, and then of course the crenellations on the very top of that. This is called the Arch of Drusus, and this is located in Rome itself. And that's a very interesting arch that was obviously part of a building, and most of that building is no longer there, but the arch itself is there. And this is a really tiny one. And this was the arch of another arch to Drusus, located in the town of Spoleto, which is a town in southern Umbria. Okay, and now these are my favorite arches. And, what I did at this point was I went through all the pictures that I had, basically, 10,000 pictures that Laura and I have in our collection, and I found some of my favorite arches, and that's what you will now be seeing. First of all, we come to the Mercato Vecchio, excuse me. I always get the O and the A mixed up in Italian because I don't speak it fluently. But this is the Mercato Vecchio, which was the forerunner of this piazza. And this is what happened when Italy became unified and Florence became the capital of Italy. This piazza, which was kind of in disrepair, became this beautiful piazza. And these are both the 19th century views. The first one is the view of what it looked like before, let's say in the 1860s, and this is what it looked like in the 1870s after the piazza was completely redone. And there's that magnificent arch that provides the entry and exit to this beautiful piazza, the Piazza Repubblica. And this is a wonderful photo of what it looked like in the 19th century. And of course, that is what it looks like nowadays. This is really one of my favorite piazzas in Florence. You can see the carousel over there on the left and all the stalls of people selling things. And that's a monumental arch that this is the other view of it. So this is coming into the piazza from, let's see now, the west, walking east towards the center of Florence, and that's what the arch looks like as you walk into the Piazza Repubblica. This is another arch in Gubbio, and I love this picture. I think I've shown this picture before, and I love the way the arch is set there within this, within the context of this beautiful scene with the hill in the background and the stone house over there on the right, and the beautiful cypress trees. And this is just one of my favorites. This is two arches, actually more than two arches, in the town of Anghiari. Anghiari is one of my favorite towns in Tuscany, where actually Laura believed that the best pizza we ever ate was in this town. And you can see two really beautiful arches at the bottom. And then the church Campanile, right at the top, shows you that they built arches into their built structure as well. This is another arch also in the town of Anghiari. Anghiari is a beautiful, beautiful town, and it's they have arches all over, and you could see two of them right there. These are the arches that provide the structure of the wall that surrounds the town of Assisi. in central Umbria. And this is a beautiful city. This is the city of Bolzano, which is located in northern Italy, very, very close to the Swiss border, the Swiss-Austrian border. And you could see the arch right there in the front, and you could see the architecture around it is architecture of which looks very German and Swiss and Austrian. So even though this is a city in Rome, you see a great deal in this picture of Swiss and Austrian architecture. These are the beautiful arches of the church of the cathedral of San Marco in Venice, and you could see how this is one of the most beautiful churches in all of Italy, and certainly you could see how the use of arches were placed in this particular church. Not only at the bottom, as you could see the entrances, but all through the church you could see that arches are just used throughout in a decorative manner. This is a piazza in Verona, which is located in the Veneto region of Italy, and you could see how they use their arch built right into their loggia, not only on the bottom level, but also on the top level. And even the windows on the building to the extreme right-hand side, you could see the use of arches. This is a building in Viterbo, which is located in the northern part of the region of Lazio, where Rome is located, and you could see how they use that in what's called the Pope's Palace. This is another view of arches in Viterbo. And you can see all the different arches that I showed you in that large summary of all the different ones present in many of these photos. Also in Viterbo, underneath the church, I believe. I think this is also in Viterbo, but I'm not totally sure. And this is back to Cività di Banoregio, and you could see that there are arches just everywhere here. The entrance to that house on the left, the arch that takes you outside the town, and there's even an arch in the building over there on the right side that you could see. I believe this is Monte Fiascone. This is actually a B&B in Montalcino in Tuscany. And Laura and I stayed here, and we photographed this because we just liked the fact that the hallway leading into the main lobby of this B&B from our room, we're coming down the stairs now. You could tell there's a slight elevation of this photograph taken from a slight elevation, and you could see that there's just a series of arches that were used in this building leading into the main lobby. Gee, I'm trying to remember where this is. I think this is Anghiari, but I'm not totally sure. It has steps, so this could be in Umbria or it could be on Lake Como, not sure. It looks a little like Varenna. This, I definitely know, is Lake Maggiore, and this is on Isola Bella, and you can see the beautiful gardens with the arch right there in the middle. I see only a couple of arches in here, one in that building over there straight ahead. This is in the town of Panzano in Tuscany. Also in the town of Panzano. So I may have put this picture to remind myself that it's really Panzano, and that's what the town of Panzano looks like. It's really beautiful. And I believe this is the town of Castellina in Chianti. Panzano is also in the Chianti region. And in the town of Greve, also in Chianti, you see all the arches around the periphery of the main square in Greve. And arcades in these towns usually have a series of arches all around it. And this is in the town of Manarola in Cinque Terre, on the southern portion of the Italian Riviera. You could see arches over there on the left. You could see an arch right in the center, right over here. It's kind of hard to see, but this is the entrance from the town, into the Mediterranean here, where the boats come into. And this is the town, I believe, of Monterosso al Mare, also in Cinque Terre. And I believe this is also Monterosso al Mare. And this is in the Alpi Apuane. This was a harrowing ride through the mountains, and of course tunnels most often have arches at their entrances and their exits. And I believe this is that same arch in the town of Civita di Bonareggio that we spoke about earlier. And you can see that it's not only the Etruscan arch that you see at the very beginning, but also arches all through the way there, through that tunnel, which leads into the town itself. This is an amazing entrance to the beautiful town of Civita. And then when you come out the other end, you're in another world. You're in a medieval world of beautiful buildings, and that's what it looks like in that beautiful city. And of course, this is Venice, and look at that. Venice, kind of initiated their own concept of arches, and there you see their example of that. Not only in that beautiful doorway you see straight ahead, but the windows to the left and to the right, and then on that second level, that small balcony up there is using them as well. So this is a really beautiful view of it. There's another view of Venice. And yet another, and this is the Basilica of San Marco, the most beautiful church in Venice, if not in all of Italy. And there's yet another one, and you could see just the use of arches in all of these buildings, in all of these parts of this building, not only down here in these bays, but also up here along the top, and even up here, the use of arches right here in these steeples. So this is, quite a thing here. And this is actually a church in Venice where they perform opera. One of the things Venice is known for is that in the evening, the churches turn into opera venues, and you could see that there's an opera going to be there this particular evening, and you could see that entrance is quite lovely with its arches. And this is the town of Varenna. You're actually looking at the ferry terminal in Varenna on Lake Como with the Alps in the background. And Laura captured this beautiful picture looking through the arch of one of the tunnels at the ferry terminal. This is also in the town of Varenna on Lake Como. My favorite town in that region, and one of the places we stay a lot because it is just a charming, charming town. And now we're in Rome, and this is a pine cone, and I indicated this in the last show we did on piazzas when I showed you the Cortile Belvedere. This is the ancient pine cone that was created by the Romans during their time, and it's of course in a beautiful location with a beautiful arch. This is inside of a church. This is, I believe, in Viterbo, and that's a beautiful one. Also in Viterbo. This is back to Civita, I believe. This is the arches in Civita. And this is Pitigliano, and you could see from a distance some of the arches that they have here as well. But this really gives you a better view of that same picture. You see these arches over here on the right side? Okay, this is the view coming into the town, and this is the view once you're in the town, looking out at the direction in which we came. This is also Viterbo. A really lovely arch leading into one of their museums. Oh, excuse me, not Viterbo, Pitigliano. I'm sorry. This is Pitigliano, and this is Pitigliano as well. And this is also, this is actually, I believe, in the ghetto of Pitigliano, one of the most famous and one of the oldest ghettos in all of central Italy is Pitigliano, and I think this is how you get into the very lower reaches of the synagogue. And I believe this is also Pitigliano. All of these pictures, in fact, are going through the ghetto area. You see these wires over here kind of mar the picture, but not really. You can still get a good view. This is that same view, I think, of that museum we saw earlier in Pitigliano. And you can see there's a well and another building also in Pitigliano. A courtyard with the beautiful loggia around it. Also, I think, in Pitigliano. Same. This is just a leather store, but that's really effective. You have these beautiful entrances, and they kind of beckon you to come in and look at their stuff. This is the town of Montefiascone, and this is the entrance to the town. And that's this is the direction we would take to come into the town. We stayed here in 2010. This is the town of Bagno Vignone, which is one of my favorite towns in central Tuscany, in the area known as the Val di Orcia. And you can see the arches over there in that building over there on the left side with the staircase. Just a beautiful sight. And those are the arches in the town of Fellini Valdarno. There's Laura taking a picture. This is a better view of it. This is the town square in Fellini Valdarno. And this town is where Luca lives, but I recently found out that our friend Susan Chalkley, who used to live right at the Villa La Palagina, which is about 5 miles to the west of this town, was the resident artist, but she's moved out of there, and she's now living in this town. As is Andrea Martellini, who was, you saw that interview, you may have seen that interview of me with him, Andrea Martellini, who was head of the Five Star Movement. That's their Occupy Wall Street. And I will be having an interview with him again when I go to Florence in a few weeks. That's another view of the main piazza of Fellini Valdarno. That's the church. As the four of us are walking into that, that's David, Luca, that's me, and I think Mary and Laura taking the picture. This is a castle in northeastern Tuscany known as the Castella Romagna, and you can see how they incorporate arches into their structure with the cat in the front. This is also Montefiascone, as well as that. This is the town of Poppi, also in northeastern Tuscany. Same town. Same town. This is the Bargello in Florence. So, and this is in their courtyard. This, as you remember, used to be a prison, and right where that fountain is on the lower left-hand corner side there is where they used to do the executions. And this is the arch in the Loggia dei Lanza in Florence. This is the arches in the Vasari corridor, which is right over here. And this is the Uffizi right over here, so arches as well. back to Venice, the clock tower in Venice, Lake Como in the town of Varenna. This is Civitar again. I have to move because I'm running out of time. This is Bellagio. This is Viterbo. Also Viterbo. I don't know how many I have left. Tuscania. That's also Tuscania. And that's the answer to my question. So we've come to the end. The next show will be one of the really great places to visit in Florence, the Pitti Palace and the Boboli Gardens. And that's what the Boboli Gardens looks like. So I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. And on behalf of Ellen and me, we wish you buonanotte e buona fortuna.